You are listening to the Wholesome Way podcast, hosted by Alexander Lobb. Please keep in mind, everything shared in this podcast is for inspiration only and shouldn't be taken as medical or professional health advice. If you're making changes to your health routines or lifestyle, please check in with our qualified health professional first. This episode will begin in 30 to 60 seconds. During that time, you're going to hear a few words from two of our very generous sponsors of the show with some pretty awesome offers. So listen to this. And now, on with the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Wholesome Way podcast, where we attempt to find our middle path through life, a path that is more balanced and more purposeful. And along the way, a common theme that's been coming up on the podcast is around mind, body, and also this idea that everything stems from emotions. As a root cause of all of our suffering, all of our problems, all of our challenges. And that always seems to be a point where we need to start. And joining me on the podcast today is Bob Ross, who is definitely, I would say, a guru expert in this idea of emotional processing and the mind-body connection. Bob is a physicist, a cancer research pioneer, and a lifelong first responder who has dedicated his career to both scientific discovery and public service. With nearly 40 years in the Pasadena Fire Department, a knack for invention, and a diverse background that ranges from medical journals to the set of major television productions, trumpet playing, singing, a stand-up comedian, and voiceover artist, Bob brings a unique perspective to the table that is truly holistic, and I think will really be able to help us find our wholesome way today. Please welcome my guest, Bob Ross. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Alexander. My pleasure. That was a very nice intro. After listening to that, I wonder if people think, I think he needs some therapy. He seems to have all these. But I was like that as a kid. I had all these interests. And my parents were great, and they said, well, as long as it doesn't interfere with your schooling, go for it.
No, absolutely. And I think I can see eye to eye with you there on that, Bob, because myself being an all-rounder, I love sport, tennis, golf, soccer, music. I play guitar, piano. So I think we're very similar in that sense. And I think that's what has drawn us today.
Yes.
The stars have aligned, if you like, into this conversation. So yeah, very much very intrigued by your background and your work. And so, yeah, very, very much looking forward to getting into this, Bob.
Beautiful.
So, I've just screen locked my screen there. All right. We're good. So, Bob, take us back to the moment or an event, circumstance that put you on this journey towards medical physics. You've studied that, or your PhD is pending in that. You've done a lot of research into cancer, and you had a diagnosis yourself. So yeah, take us back into what put you through this journey from the very beginning.
Awesome. Would love to. Now, since we are going to talk about some medical things, it's important that I read the following disclaimer. This conversation is not to be construed as medical advice. Always consult a healthcare professional prior to starting or changing any treatment program.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Bob.
And I do use the word healthcare provider as opposed to just a regular MD. And as we progress through, you'll understand why, because a lot of times in medical school, they're not taught about the mind-body connection as much and so forth. Right? So, good. So,
absolutely.
A very interesting childhood. My mom was a professional musician, and my dad was a mortician. His dad was a mortician. It was a family business. I was the oldest boy. I was supposed to be an undertaker. And I decided to go into the healing field. One day my father said, "Son, you've gone to the dark side." And I'm glad I did. So, and my grandfather is a famous research chemist, and I always loved science, and I loved music. Actually started as a double major in physics and music in college. And then I did it was like a graduation with distinction in nuclear physics. So it's like a mini PhD. And when I was there, I found out about the field of medical physics, which is applying physics to medicine. So the MRI scanner is magnets, that's physics. The highest use of a medical physicist is in cancer, especially cancer therapy. So as part of the doctorate work, very famous medical school, you have to do research. And I was part of a team that discovered if you increase the temperature of cancer cells, it made them weak. So if you just heated up the body before a treatment, you could use less chemo or less radiation. And we're not talking a dangerous level where you could hurt the brain. Right? And we're peer-reviewed, the whole scientific standard, and it basically got suppressed. In fact, a physician friend of mine told me that the FDA made it illegal.
Wow.
Exactly. And when I inquired, I said, but if let's say we use even 50% less chemo, that's 50% less side effects. Yes, and that's 50% of our profit. But what about the patient? Well, Bob, it's the business of medicine. It's not healthcare. But I got into medicine to help people.
Business of medicine.
Yep. So as horrendous as that was, this is a very important lesson. As horrendous as that was, it was a gift. Because that opened my eyes to what I've been trained in was maybe not the best course. So I actually spent 11 years in school total. I finished my internship at a hospital up in Oregon, and I walked away from the field of traditional cancer therapy. So, so that's when I went into emergency medicine and joined the local fire department in their EMS reserve. And I volunteered my services all these years to give me the flexibility for my comedy and music and what have you. Because we're the best in the world for emergency medicine. Right? We solve the problem, we're looking at the cause, we address the cause. In traditional Western medicine, the focus a lot of times is on symptoms. Right? So, and I mean, here's a good example. When it's actually when I was in the program at the medical school, that I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And the gift of that was that I now have complete compassion with someone who receives a diagnosis. The fear and the panic and the denial. I had some really good denial capabilities.
Imagine.
Yes. And I spent 8 years in intensive care, and they did absolutely brutal things. Now, they were trying to help me and understood, but it was barbaric. And so fortunately, I'm fine. But I always had that lingering thing. Well, why did I get this in the first place? And when I ask about that, well, we're not concerned about that. We're focused on, what you have now and what we're going to do. I go, but if we don't find the cause, is it going to happen again? Well, we're just focused on this. The example I actually came up with was if you moved into an apartment and unbeknownst to you, you had a radioactive cobalt underneath your bed. So like underneath the floor. Now that exposure could give you cancer. So let's say you go and you get treated and you're fine now and you come back. But if you come back to the same apartment, being exposed to the same radiation, what's going to happen? It's going to come back. So, and again, this is my experience and I'm not giving advice. But when I was in the program, I said, but I have a fundamental question. We know that exposure to radiation can cause cancer. Well, yes, that's why we wear the badges to detect how much radiation you've been exposed to. Okay. We know being exposed to the chemotherapy agents can cause cancer. Yes, that's why you have to gown up and all that. So how can things that cause cancer cure cancer? Well, that's not our goal. Our goal is to kill the cancer cells. But it's so harsh that a lot of times it diminishes the immune system, which has the ability, right? We get cancer cells that pop up every day, and the immune system is designed to pick it up, just like it's designed to detect viruses and put together what it needs to take care of it. And that really solidified that we're in medicine, a lot of times we have the wrong approach. So now my focus is, how do we help the body heal? Okay. One, there's always a cause. And now how do we help the body heal? And like you said, I did a lot of things. I worked in the motion picture industry as what we call the set medic. So I worked on television shows, commercials, music videos. I worked on The Amazing Race and Biggest Loser and SEAL Team, SWAT. In fact, my favorite, I was the lead medic on American Ninja Warrior for 6 seasons.
Oh, amazing. You must have met some cool people.
Cool people, and I was so busy. Got a lot of camera time. So, and I've always been an entrepreneur. And at some point in my life, several things happened, and it felt like the bottom of life just fell out. And I noticed something very odd, that I would get amount of success, like in a business project, and something weird would happen and it would destroy it. My friends would say, Bob, why'd you do that? Do what? And they tell me what I do. Well, what? So I was actually sabotaging my success. I was so confused. Well, how can that be? So I went to a PhD psychologist, and a very nice guy, asked good questions. And after many, many sessions, he says, I think I've got a key of what's going on. I said, what's that? He says, you have a fear of success. Get out of here. That can't be true, because I have a desire for success, right? And he says, no, you have the signs, that you're self-sabotaging and you have a fear of success. And I said, okay, well then what do I do? Well, that's not for me to say. What do you mean? You're the psychologist. No, it's up to you. But no, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Obviously, I don't know what to do because I'm causing the problem, right? I was so frustrated, but again, it was a gift, because it's wait a minute, if there was a cause for this self-sabotage, there has to be a solution to it. And that started me on my path. I worked with Tony Robbins in person, brilliant man. Eckhart Tolle, the best ever, I mean, many others, but the best was Gary Craig, who invented EFT, which is also known as emotional freedom technique. It's also known as tapping, because you tap on the end of a nerve. So this is the biggest breakthrough in psychology. When there's a trauma, whether we see something bad happen, we see a child hit by a car, or we get hit by a car, it results in an electrical disturbance in our nervous system. It's like an electrical tumor. The fancy term is electrical perturbation, right? But it's in the nervous system. That's why it can be years later and something will trigger that memory, and your body will go into the same that when you saw that child get hit by a car. Now, I'm all in favor of talk therapy. Very, very helpful. We do that in the fire department, even before we get back to the fire station on a difficult call. Right? That's very, very good. But if you think about it, if it's bad enough to result in that disturbance in your nervous system, that's an electrical problem in your nervous system. And talk therapy is an electrical. Maybe a good analogy is when someone goes into cardiac arrest, you look at the EKG and it's quivering like a bowl of jello. That's an electrical problem, right? So how do we solve that electrical problem? Do we talk to the heart? Now, Mr. Heart, tell me how you're feeling. I mean, it seems kind of funny, but no, we treat an electrical problem with electricity. That's why we defibrillate. The whole purpose of the paddles, clear, they were good for ground control too, bad guys say. clear, is to correct the electrical problem. And the amazing thing about the process of defibrillation, it actually allows the heart to reset itself. Oh, we're helping the body do what it wants to do, helping the body heal. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
So when something bad happens, your brain like takes a picture. I don't know if you know this, but the subconscious part of our mind that controls our breathing and all those bodily functions is awake 24 hours a day. Otherwise, we stop breathing at night. It has a perfect memory. It memorizes everything you've ever. It's like a recorder. Everything you've ever seen, tasted, touched, smelled in your entire life. Now, the conscious mind can't handle that amount of information, and so now the challenge is this part has got to dig into the files to try and remember something that happened. The more emotion attached to a memory, the easier it is to pop up. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
So it takes a picture of the sights, the sounds, the smells, taste, touched, anything going on. Could be, let's say a song was playing when you saw that child get hit by a car. Hearing that song years later can trigger that memory. So anytime that's stuck in the nervous system, that's what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's in there. Right? So, and this is the brilliance of EFT. If you tap on the end of a nerve, that's why it's very specific spots. It's not just anywhere. You tap on the end of a nerve, it sends electrical signal down that nerve. Now, if you're thinking about, say, the visual of that child getting hit by a car as you're tapping, your brain knows where in the nervous system that trauma is, that electrical disturbance is. It sends the electrical signal to that area and it like defibrillates it and can literally collapse it. And guess what? PTSD is gone.
Whoa.
So when I work with somebody, I'm not healing them. I'm not, right? I am just helping them trigger their own healing of their body. Isn't that
incredible?
Amazing?
Yeah. So I'd love to, talk about this, like, the idea you talk about that, our bodies are giving us constantly giving us signals and signs that we're in the healing process. And I think from what I've learned, and also from listening to you as well, is that it really comes down to a lot of it is intuition, which is essentially just being in touch with, what the information that you're being given, not necessarily written in front of you on a page, but,
Right.
listening to information that is in a different medium, things that you can't really explain, you can't always explain logically. Tell me a bit about, your journey on discovering your own intuition and how that's helped you in your healing journey.
Did you see me shift in the chair?
Yeah.
Like this? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, woo,
Here we go.
brace yourself. I hope your chair has a seatbelt on it.
Yeah.
So, I have helped to develop my intuition. We all have it, right? A lot of times we ignore it. We don't realize it's actually wisdom, right? In fact, I'll tell you. So this is how it kind of realized that what I was hearing wasn't actually technically coming from me. So the church I go to, incredible music, people from all over the world to hear the music, but it's a small parking lot. So they say, hey, people that come here often, just, park a couple blocks away. We rented spaces up at Target, and that way there's space for visitors. So I'd always found a place about a block and a half up and parked there all the time. And one Sunday I parked there and I heard, don't park here. I literally heard, don't park here. Well, of course I am, because I'm leaving space for visitors. Sorry, arguing, right? And so I stay there and I go into the service and I'm sitting right behind the pastor, and during the music, the usher hands him a note. He looks at it, he turns around and says, Bob, you have a Lincoln Town Car? Yeah. You don't anymore. What do you mean? Someone smashed into it, destroyed it, and they don't have insurance. Now, could I be mad at God? How could you let that happen? Dude, I told you not to park here. And then all of a sudden I realized, whoa, those hits that I was getting were intuition. And so by opening myself up to it, I get intuitive hits to be at a certain place at a certain time to save somebody who might have died otherwise. So if I'm at an event at the Rose Bowl, soccer matches, concerts, all that, my assignment might be Tunnel 5. And I might hear, go to Tunnel 1. No, that's not my district. Somebody else is stationed down there. I'm supposed to be at Tunnel 5. Ooh. So if it doesn't make sense, that gives it more weight that it's probably a good hit. Right? And sure enough, I'll go to Tunnel 1. Usually within 30 seconds, somebody needs my help. Very dramatic. Isn't that cool? I love it. And that's important. So again, I've developed this, but we all have intuition. We just need to pay attention. And sometimes it might be for your protection. So sometimes I'll be coming back from like fire department training, and there's kind of a more direct route, and I'll hear to take another route. Now, why would I do that? More miles is going to take longer. Oh, copy that. It doesn't make sense. It's probably a good hit. And who knows what I avoided, right? By taking that shorter route.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So can I give you a quick example
Go for it.
of when we talked about in your nervous system? So I had a gentleman who had been afraid of dogs as long as he could remember. I mean, extreme fear of dogs. He would jump up on a car, even if the dog wasn't, dangerous. And I said, so he said, probably like 45 years I've had this problem. Oh, so what was my natural question? What happened 45 years ago? Nothing I can think about, right? So we started with the EFT, the tapping. And the great thing about EFT is that the memory often will pop up. And sometimes I'll get it as an intuitive hit. But even if I don't, usually the person I'm working with will get it. We're maybe 10 minutes at the most in. And he goes, oh, I go, excellent. He said, I was like 7 years old. I'm riding my bicycle, and this dog is chasing after me, foam coming out of his mouth, trying to bite my legs. Oh, no wonder. You're a little kid. Looks like he's got rabies, right? That trauma, that emotional trauma caused post-traumatic stress disorder. That's in your nervous system. So now that we have the discovery, now we just focus on the sights, the sounds, the smells, all that. Maybe an hour at the most, we worked. Okay? And by the way, just closing his eyes before we started, he would freak out thinking about a dog. Right?
Whoa.
And so about an hour, he couldn't get upset. No, think about that dog chasing you. I can see it, but I'm not upset. Because it doesn't erase your memory. It just changes it from a trauma to a bad event. And he actually went to go to see his sister. That's why he wanted help, who had a dog. She was getting married. And the dog rushed up to him when she opened the door. He said, Bob, I was perfectly calm. And then she said, let's go to the dog park. No! We went to the dog park, and I was perfectly fine. So our paths crossed recently, and it's been like 4 years. And he says, Bob, never been a problem since. In fact, I've adopted a dog.
Wow. Transformation.
Isn't that transformation? Now, he'd gone to a therapist. He'd gone to psychologists and stuff, right? And they've done work, but that's what's so phenomenal about the EFT tapping is you're going to the root. You're actually dissolving the electrical disturbance in the body.
Mm. And in your experience, Bob, have you found that this sort of emotional, electrical, healing, does it take longer for others? And why does it take longer for some people? Is it dependent on the area of their body that it's happening? If it's happening in their throat or if it's happening in their heart, or does it depend on, you mentioned this guy who for 45 years was afraid of dogs, but it sounds like his transformation was pretty quickly once you were able to guide him towards understanding and opening up his subconscious and finding why, why it happened 45 years ago. Why that's so specific? Like what, why? You're just asking these questions, and with the EFT tapping. So yeah, does it take longer for others? And if so, or if not, why?
And so that's the best part. There's always a cause. We don't have phobias for fun, right? Fear of heights often results because they fell out of a top bunk bed as a kid, or they were tossed up and they fell, or something, right? And like we talked about, when the brain takes this picture, then it causes triggers. So it could be even the sound of a barking dog would trigger him because that dog was barking at him, right? And the beautiful thing with EFT tapping, now, since that was a one-time event, often I find that people in one session and it's gone.
Wow.
If it's like multiple traumas, let's say abuse, you just take one event and work through it. Okay? And they'll think about that one event and it'll dramatically be dropped. I always ask on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being freaked out, what are you? And then you can gauge, right? And they usually come down to a 2, maybe a 1. They say, I can't believe it. Oh, but that other event. So I said, make a note of any of the things that pop up, any of the events that seem to be on your top of your mind. That's your wisdom, right? Bringing that to say, hey, let's deal with that. And we work on that. And pretty soon there's a domino effect that happens. And then the rest of them all just get resolved. Yeah. So, and I actually study with Gary Craig in person. Traveled a bit with him and just unbelievable things. And I'm even seeing it more now because now I'm melding all these things in. And I'm glad you brought up why people take longer. You've heard the placebo effect?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So person gets a pill, but they think it's the real drug, and they often get healed. But they weren't given anything. Right? And in medical school, they just hated that placebo effect. It's ruining our studies. But again, I said, hey, excuse me, but if they can get healed by a sugar pill that has no side effects, why do we do that? Bob, you're not listening. We can't patent the placebo effect.
We can't make money off that. Yeah. Yes.
Now, obviously, we need to make money to keep research going and pay salaries and all that. I'm not, against that. It's just we don't want that to be the focus. So, what was I saying? Oh, I hate it when brain cells die in public.
Placebo effect.
Oh, yeah. There you go. See, good thing you're here. I'd be lost on my own. Yeah, I noticed that in the notes. It is his job. So the opposite of the placebo effect is the nocebo effect, which means you don't believe something's going to work. So the same scenario, you can be given the real drug that has 100% cure rate, but if you don't believe it's going to work, you can nullify the effect of it. Wait a minute. So where's the power? It's not in the pill. Where's the power? Right here. In fact, the gentleman who had a severe multiple personality disorder, and one of his personalities, say James, had full-blown diabetes, type 1, had to take insulin. Another one of his personalities, say Jimmy, had no diabetes. Pancreas worked just fine. So was there anything wrong with his pancreas? No. So what was turning it on and off? His mind. Now, the good news, you don't have to have multiple personalities to access that, right? We all have that. And the breakthrough key for me was when, so I did a deep dive on that placebo effect, obviously. And the deep dive showed that it mainly was the amount of belief that somebody had that the sugar pill was actually the real drug and was going to help them. It was a matter of belief. And I remember growing up in a wonderful Christian home. I mean, true Christianity where it's grace, mercy, right? Love, all that kind of stuff. Kids would flock to our house. I could never understand it. Now I understand because I went to their house like, oh, they're screaming and yelling. And I could never understand why in scripture it talks about the importance to having faith for healing. And I'm a kid, maybe 10 years old. I go, that doesn't make any sense. Well, why does God need my faith? Scott saying, oh, if only Bobby Boy would believe I could pull this off, but I can't. That never made sense. Well, that's just the mystery of Scripture. And then I got the answer. Belief is the placebo effect. You know what that means? That already in us, God has put that miraculous ability, and including healing ability, right? Because obviously if they got healed by a sugar pill, their body did the healing. The pill didn't do a thing. That's already in us. And it's like water that's in a pipe. It's already there. And belief is like the spigot that turns it on and lets it flow. But it can be hard to believe. I remember when I got my diagnosis, where that flipped everything on its head. And it was hard to believe, right? So that's why I developed this brain technique to actually release the placebo effect on purpose. And it was a modification of the brain technique I developed to help myself with my self-sabotage. And it turns out that I had abuse in childhood that was so severe, my brain just encapsulated it, which was a gift, otherwise I'd gone nuts. And I think I was 45 when it was revealed and then confirmed, right? But it turns out the core of my belief was that it wasn't safe to be seen. And if I'm successful, I'm going to be seen. And the whole purpose of the subconscious mind is to keep us safe of what it thinks is safe, right? So it's kind of like a form of a trigger. And then if I'm being safe, I'm being seen. It's not safe because that's what happened back then. I was being seen, right? All that connection. And you can consciously, until you're blue in the face, you're never going to conquer that. So I developed a brain technique that would help that. And I'll give you guys, you and your listeners, some wonderful tips. So the brain works on questions. Your brain has to answer a question. It has no choice. Even if it's a stupid question, you know, how many fingers am I holding up? Well, duh, Bob, I know you have 5 fingers holding up, right? But it had to answer that question. That's why, as a good example, what was the name of that song? Oh, well. And then 15 minutes later, an hour, sometimes hours later, it pops because your brain was working on finding the answer to that question. And unfortunately, most of the questions we ask ourselves, Alexander, are negative.
All the wrong question to ask.
All the wrong questions. And once you ask a bad question or any question, your brain gives a basis of why that's true. So the example I like to give, because it's not true, is, you know, why am I such a bad uncle? Well, guess what my brain said? Well, I'll tell you why. You forgot here's their birthday. You did it. You gave the wrong gift. Right? All that supporting evidence, which just reinforces that belief that I'm a bad uncle. So the biggest thing your listeners can do is flip it to ask the reverse of the question. So instead of, you know, why am I such a bad uncle? Flip it to say, how am I a great uncle? Not how can I be? Because that's the future. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Your subconscious mind only knows right now, doesn't know the future. Okay? So that's why I say by next week, subconscious mind says, only know now, right? So that's why, how am I a great uncle? Wait a minute, I just asked myself a question and your brain has to answer it. All of a sudden you'll get these intuitive ideas of things to do that's going to make you a great uncle. Now, if you want to magnify that, you lower your brain wave. So the brain operates in different frequencies, just like musical notes have different frequencies. And normally right now in beta. It's a pretty fast frequency. When we listen to beautiful music or meditation tapes and things, they lower our brain waves to alpha. Okay? And we can feel it in our bodies. And it's kind of fun to notice that, like, even great music, or like the painter Bob Ross.
Yeah.
He was a perfect example, right? Within 5 minutes, you can be all upset within 5 minutes. Oh, happy trees.
Just the sound of a voice.
Yeah, he was putting people in alpha. Well, there's a more powerful frequency, and it's theta, which is right before you fall asleep. So usually only lasts a few seconds, and you might feel like you're floating, or you see pictures or colors, and then doop, you're asleep. Well, I found a way to get the brain into theta without falling asleep, because in theta you have no no conscious mind that's blocking it. Right? It goes in straight as truth. In fact, that's why when kids are young, they're basically in alpha and theta.
Is that right?
That's why they believe everything they're told. And the more the authority of the figure, the more they believe it. But that's also why they can learn musical instruments and languages so easily, because it's like a direct thing right into their subconscious mind.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
So then if we want to learn something quicker, like a language, and obviously some of us have that limiting belief that, oh, I'm too old to change, I'm too old to learn. You can't teach a dog new tricks. That classic quote, which I shouldn't be saying because that's going into my subconscious. but
you're not a dog, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not a dog. You can teach this one new tricks. What is how can someone how can someone like take down that barrier, like decrease those brain waves to alpha and theta? Is it something over time? Is it something that we have to practice like every single day? Is it just these questions that we're asking ourselves? What's the most effective way forward to be able to decrease those brain waves?
Alexander, you can do this podcast thing professionally.
Oh, thank you.
Great questions. And as we just talked about, questions are so key, right, to digging deep. Even in business, and I'll share a question. Even in business, a good business person, when something bad happens, 10% of their effort is on the bad thing that happened, but 90% is on what we're going to do, solution, how can we avoid from that happening again, because it moves them forward. Focusing on what happens gets us stuck. Okay? It gets us stuck. So I will answer your question with a technique that I invented that will help you and your listeners fall asleep when it's tough to fall asleep because your brain's too active. That's the only reason you can't fall asleep, is your brain is too active.
Oh, we're going to love this one. Yeah.
Yes. So when you're ready for bed, you lay in bed. Okay? On your back is the very best. Side doesn't work the same. I haven't figured out why physically, but on the back, and you roll your eyes up. Well, first off, you just take a nice deep breath through your nose, and out through the mouth. Nice deep breath through the nose, and out through the mouth. Just for about a minute or so, and then roll your eyes up like you're looking through the top of your head. Okay? So I'll show you, but it'll look like I'm a zombie. So it's actually straight up, and it's uncomfortable unless if you've done it for a while and get used to it. But that turns out to be actually a physiological trigger for the brain to slow the brain waves down.
Interesting.
Yep. So and it does it within 3 minutes, right? And the added thing I added to it, which makes it even more powerful, you do the same breathe through your nose. And when you breathe out, once your eyes are rolled up, as soon as you start breathing out, you say the word relaxing. And then at the very end of the breath, now. Right? So relaxing. Now. That's a hypnotic command. And since your brain is already lowered, it's a very powerful hypnotic command. And again, usually in 3 to 5 minutes, and this is the cool thing, if your eyes are still open, everything will be black.
Is that right?
Yeah. So if you're trying to fall asleep, have them closed, and all of a sudden you'll find that you just nod off.
Oh, I'll have to try that tonight. I'm excited. Yeah.
So
I don't have a big problem falling asleep, but That is, sometimes you have those days that it is too much, and you've looked at the screen for a bit too long before bed. And I think that's a great way. Yeah, it sounds like a great way to. It almost sounds like you're hypnotizing yourself in a way. Yeah.
Yes, and most hypnotist methods, from what I've studied, get you into alpha.
Mm.
But theta is the magic. That's the key, right?
Yeah.
So people can use this when they're trying to solve a problem. So going back to that, how am I a great uncle? So if you do the same thing, right, when you feel yourself really relaxing, you ask the question, how am I a great uncle? How am I the most amazing uncle? And you fall asleep. Sometimes you get a dream with ideas. You wake up in the middle of the night. The next day, same with solving a problem, some business problem, and you don't focus on, it's this. What is the solution of that problem? How do I know the solution to that problem?
Mm.
And always have something by your bed to write with, because you might wake up in the middle of the night and it comes. I'll remember that in the morning. And guess what? You forget by the morning.
No, yeah, it's a fantastic technique. I use it with my coaching clients as well, in life strategy coaching. Yeah, we call it. So I practiced. Well, I got my certification from Mind Valley, which you might have heard.
Yes.
Yeah. Vishen Lakhiani. Yeah. Ajit. Yeah. And I did that course, and yeah, he talks a lot about those questions, which he calls lofty questions. And it's exactly what you described. And so I think that's it's a good testament to, the power of questions, and to almost redirect and reshape the stories that we're telling ourselves about us, about who we are, what our beliefs are, and really flipping them on our head. And the discovery is that we are the creators of our own life, our own existence. We are the authors. And these powerful questions, turning them on and asking and almost tricking. I think the way that Vishen describes it is you're tricking your mind to look for the evidence of which you desire, of what you truly desire for your personal growth. So for example, as you mentioned, if you want to be a good uncle, and you're aware that you might not be, then you can look for the evidence. And even if there isn't evidence, just asking that question along that direction to act and behave like a good uncle. So you're almost reigniting or reshaping what you should be doing and what you want to do. I love it.
You can use this as a discovery tool. So let's say, like with me, I was self-sabotaging. I can go through that same process, and it's nice when you go to sleep, because then you're not disturbed by the things in your brain. Again, your subconscious mind is constantly working on that question. So what is the root cause of my self-sabotage in business or in relationships or in, whatever? Please bring to me, to my conscious awareness, what the root cause is. And again, your subconscious mind is basically you. So hello. and
knows you best.
Yes. And so when the memory pops up, then you use the EFT tapping to resolve that. And usually it's like you're attached to this bungee cord to the old trauma, and you've stretched it out. It's tight, right? And all of a sudden you're able to cut the bungee cord, and not only does it free you from that, it propels you forward to what you really want, because now your brain knows it's safe to have it. So I tell you what, I'm going to give your listeners a treat.
Here we go. Lucky us.
Here we go. So if they go to the hiddensecrettohealing.com, that's my main healing website, the hiddensecrettohealing.com, And if they go /EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, they'll get my training on EFT for free.
Amazing. That's very generous of you.
Now that I've said it, I can't take it back.
So yeah, tell us a bit more about the hidden secret to healing, because I can see you've got the subtitle there, The Missing Link to All Cancer Therapies. And I can imagine, obviously you are a gifted healer in, PTSD, phobias, addictions. But yeah, tell us a bit about the hidden secret to healing. We've talked about EFT, but are there any other components that you work through in your, I think you call it your cancer coaching, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's a combination of all the things that makes it so powerful. Right? With, well, I had a revelation at one point, but I didn't know it was so significant. But probably 85% of the cancer patients I worked with had unresolved emotional trauma. Because I would get to know them, right? And, but that always kind of stuck with me. Well, maybe there's a connection. Now, we do know that a lot of stress and all that can weaken the immune system, makes them more susceptible for illness, right? But then they discovered that probably 70-80% of people in the hospital for medical problems had unresolved emotional trauma.
Wow. 70-80%. Wow.
Isn't that crazy making? So that's why I focus on healing. I focus on healing my body. You first have to heal that trauma. Oh, in fact, here's a good example. A friend of mine had cancer, and he had a terrible, terrible childhood, did not get love as a child, which is just hideous. But he was getting all this love once he got diagnosed with cancer. He didn't want to get better. Now, consciously he did, but he was sabotaging everything, every treatment he was getting, he was sabotaging because that meant he wouldn't get the love anymore. So without solving that issue, he would continue to self-sabotage, and unfortunately he did and passed away. So the first thing is we got to look at any cause. And the other thing is, at the same time that I had my original cancer breakthrough that was suppressed, by the way, since word got out about it before it got suppressed, if you go anywhere in the world right now, Germany, East Asia, Mexico, to their cancer clinics, the first thing they do when you go there is they heat your body up. They use the hyperthermia effect. So I'm actually world famous, but nobody knows it's me. And that's okay. Because it's helping people, right? It's helping people.
Exactly.
And like a naturopath, even here in the United States, their focus is on helping the body heal what's missing naturally. Like someone with irregular heartbeats, the whole problem may be a lack of potassium. I had that the other day with someone who was dehydrated, and their irregular heartbeats to go, no history of heart, nothing. Right? Replace the electrolytes, and potassium's electrolyte, it was corrected on its own.
Good to go.
Right? Yeah, great to go. So, so at the same time I made my breakthrough, there was a German doctor, cancer specialist, who got his own breakthrough, which is actually something I got when I was maybe 10 years old. I knew nothing about medicine, knew nothing about connections. And I was on a podcast with a naturopath, and he said, oh man, afterwards he sent me an email, said, Bob, you need to get a hold of, find out about this gentleman. And I did. And so what he discovered was, again, that most of his patients had unresolved emotional trauma. And this is what he noticed. And this is what I got when I was like 10 years old, that depending on the type of emotional trauma is what organ they would get cancer in.
Fascinating.
Because I remember asking, well, why do some people get kidney cancer? Some people get thyroid cancer. Well, we don't know, it's probably genetics. Well, we know now that genetics hardly has anything to do with anything. The genes are a switch that get turned on and off, Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, The Power of Belief. I mean, great research on that. So it turns out, again, that the type of emotional trauma. Well, have you ever been nervous?
Oh, yeah.
And that's just a mental thought, right? Did you feel it in your body?
Yeah, I would say probably feel it. I usually feel it around my neck or my heart gets a bit, my chest gets a bit tight. Yeah.
Tight. Stomach muscles contract, acids increase, heart rate goes up every single time. One of the things I learned from Tony Robbins is there's a physiological response to every emotion.
Okay.
That's why you feel the same way, because emotion causes, it's just directly hardwired into the system. Okay? Well, it turns out that if there's an emotional shock event, so it has to be sudden, unexpected, and catch you off guard. It's kind of like pushing Alt, Control, and Delete at the same time for a computer to restart it. You have to do all three at the same time. If that happens, there's going to be a biological response, which is your body trying to adapt to what's going on. Perfect example. In fact, it was this doctor. His son was murdered. Now, the biological response from that shock is for his testosterone to go through the roof. Now, here's the important thing. The biological response is always positive, even though it doesn't feel good. Like when you twist your ankle, the trauma causes inflammation, which does not feel good, but it's a beautiful thing. It helps get more blood and oxygen to heal. And I had somebody just grab, oh, this is junk science. You're a quack. And I said, so you ever twist your ankle? Yeah, yeah. Well, did it swell up? Yeah, yeah. So what happened to the inflammation when the ankle was healed? It went away. How'd that happen? What'd you do? Well, nothing. Oh, so it's built into the body to have a biological response that's always positive, and when it doesn't need it anymore, then it heals.
That's such a good point. Yeah, because we often see, we see ourselves or someone else injured, and our immediate response is, oh my gosh, we have to try and fix this solution. We have to try and fix it quick. I realized I had a lot of, you could call it PTSD, probably just say trauma, from my childhood, where I would often sometimes hide my injuries from my mom because she would freak out, she would blow up. So my response was to always she also taught me how to look after myself. So I learned that too, but I learned quickly to look after myself. But I would often, the problem in that was that I wouldn't ask for help and I wouldn't tell anyone that I was sick or that I was injured. And it all came up to this one moment when I re-injured an ankle in a soccer game. Ooh. And a long-term injury that there was always, it was healed properly. I could still play well, but there was a lot of scar tissue around there, and I did it again, the same thing basically. And I drove home injured, and my fiance, she saw me limping into bed, and she said, "Oh, what have you done?" And then I never blow up. Like, I'm not an angry person, and I blew up, Bob. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sick of you, getting angry about my injuries." And I wasn't even angry at her. It was angry at, what had happened to me in the past, right, and why I was just so frustrated of being injured. And I think it's important to know that we do get injured. We do get sick. It's just the way that our body builds up resilience to that same threat in the future, but yeah, I just wanted to give that anecdote because it's so true. We are taught to, first of all, that symptoms are bad and that we should try and fix those symptoms ASAP at the expense of looking for the root cause.
Right. So that's why they recommend by the way, what you had was a trigger, right? When she said that was a trigger from childhood. Oh, fits right into what we're talking about. Good example.
There it is. Yeah.
So we're told, oh yeah, put ice on it to reduce inflammation. Take ibuprofen to reduce inflammation. Wrap it really tight to reduce inflammation. the worst thing we can do. Now, initially, you might have to wrap it just to give it support until you get home and undo the wrapping, right? But again, that's the key. So going back to the example of his son being murdered, the biological response for a man losing a child is testosterone goes through the roof. And can you imagine what the biological purpose of that is?
To reproduce, because he's just lost a son.
Yes. It makes him more virile, more likely to be able to, right, to reproduce the son that was lost. That's beautiful biology. Right? The downside of it is it causes testicular cancer.
Too much testosterone.
Oh, interesting. But here's the beautiful thing, Alexander. As soon as his wife gets pregnant, or if he would just resolve that emotional trauma, and again, the EFT, perfect for that, of his son dying, right? The body doesn't need that biological response anymore. It has a purpose. And once the purpose is solved or it knows it doesn't need it anymore, it stops the disease because it doesn't need that high testosterone, right? And then it goes into the healing phase. And the body literally dissolves the testicular cancer.
Incredible.
Remember my example of a placebo effect and like water in a pipe? All the things we need, it's like one of the things is like a form of tuberculosis. It just sits dormant, right? But that actually helps dissolve even a solid tumor. For the same reason, if you cut yourself, your body goes and heals the wound. You burn yourself, same thing, the body's designed to go into the healing phase, right? All that.
Yeah.
So, but the healing phase does have symptoms to it. You might have heard the term healing crisis, right? And that's when people think, oh no, something's terrible. But once they have a good understanding, a good wisdom, in fact, on my site, when they opt in, there's like a 9-minute video I put together on my latest breakthrough and examples and actually a visual that you show that was looking at, and it's all biology. This isn't quack medicine. This isn't me, right? This is just understanding how the body heals, just like looking at the ankle. Once we know that, in fact, even the guy who invented the whole idea of ice compression and elevation, ice, right, for twin, has come out and said, stop that.
Yeah.
Because it goes against nature, it goes against the body healing. So that's why I call it the funnel effect in life, where things I had even like reading a book or taking a class, I'm like, oh, I don't really need that. Well, I had the idea of do it. And sure enough, something plays into everything that's happening right now because of the gift with healing post-traumatic stress disorder and the traumas that have caused people's cancer, right? When they heal that, right, they're doing the healing, the body automatically goes into the healing mode.
Wow. I think it's an interesting point that comes to mind when we're talking about this is, a lot of people are overwhelmed with health information. And yes. I think what you're, with all these new discoveries, these new breakthroughs that you're coming to, I think, and given that you've already learned the basics, not the basics, I should say, you've actually studied, medical physics, and you had your divergent, your path diverged to go down this other path. I think what is really most important when it comes to health and well-being is keeping an open mind and knowing that what you believe is the most important part, and to just absorb all the information that comes out, because we certainly don't know everything, and even the basic theories that our whole understanding of the earth and the universe and ourselves is still developing. They used to think that everyone used to believe and take for granted that the sun revolved around the earth.
We have to be the center of the universe.
We have to be. Yeah, the heliocentric model. Like, if that's not proof that you can't take everything for Bible that is out right now, then I don't know what is, And so I think that keeping an open mind is the best way forward, and just pick those things that you believe in for your own healing. So
Yes.
yeah, no, I love your approach to it. It's very holistic, and it's very, as you said, it's coming towards your it's using your intuition. But yeah, Bob, tell me, what are you most excited for leading up, coming up in the future with your work, with the realm of cancer therapy, phobias, addictions, using EFT? Yeah. What are you most excited for?
So I think I legally can say this. I'm seeing miracles. I can't give examples because of, the authorities, but I'm seeing miracles. And again, I just am helping people heal. And if you think about it, we're not just physical beings. We know we're spiritual beings. In fact, I love bringing people back from the jaws of death, right? Cardiac arrest, they're clinically dead. Some people remember it, some people don't. And sometimes the people that do remember it, they say the exact same thing every time, regardless of their religious upbringing. They say, Bob, when I died, my spirit left my body. I said, I thought you were an atheist and didn't believe we were spiritual beings. Well, I do now. So, and usually about sitting level, and they're looking at the body on the ground. Now, doctors say that's just the brain. Well, the brain's in this head. It's on the ground, right? But that makes sense, being spiritual beings, why a mom can know that their child is in danger halfway around the world. If we were just chemicals, that couldn't be possible, right? And literally, they'll start pointing, hey, you're the one that did chest compression. Dude, you were wailing on my chest. Did you have to push that hard? Well, that guy says you were doing a good job. And you're the one that shocked me with those paddles. Clear. So if I'm doing CPR on someone, now that I know what I do, I look up and I talk to them. And if they're old enough to be a grandparent, guess who I talk about?
Grandkids.
Usually it's the strongest driver in their life. Come on, your grandkids need you. Gotta fight to come back. You gotta fight to come back.
I love that.
So, and to answer your question specifically, what I want people to really understand is that the wisdom of the body, your body never does something to hurt you. It's designed always to help, and sometimes it means protecting you, right? So now we can look at a symptom or a diagnosis that, okay, and you can do research. I actually built an AI app. I have no experience in coding. It was quite the 55-gallon drum of Pepto-Bismol to develop this thing, where you can just put in the organ and the diagnosis or symptoms, and it tells you the type of emotional cause.
Whoa,
yeah.
That's cool. Can we put a link to that? Or is that part of your program?
You want all these gifts? It's actually part of the program, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Oh, no. If it's part of the program, I'll check it out.
No.
Yeah. You've given a lot of cool tips and very useful tips today. So yeah.
So, but again, people can even use their subconscious mind before they go to sleep. What's having these symptoms? What's the emotional cause? Right.
Wow. Amazing.
And again, if they have an issue, just have them send me an email and I'll send it to them. Right?
Incredible.
Get a nice printout and all that's going on. So, but that really changes the model of how we look at illness, and a symptom may actually be a gift. Even though it seems to be negative, because it probably 80% of the time, it means there's unresolved emotional trauma that's actually affecting our lives, whether we're aware of it or not. So it's a double gift. Not only are we helping ourselves physically, but we're helping ourselves emotionally and spiritually. We're like a 3-part person, right? Mind, body, and spirit. And all those need to be healthy. Otherwise, off the path.
Yeah, off the path. That's it. Brilliant.
Yep.
Love that, Bob. Well, Bob, thank you so much for sharing all this incredible knowledge and wisdom today. It's been very, and I'm sure the listeners are too, but I'm very grateful for all those tips and tricks that you've given us today, especially the one falling asleep. I'm going to try that tonight, and I'm going to send you an email on how it went afterwards. And if anyone wants to try that too, please comment on the episode. We want to hear it. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Bob, before we wrap up, I love to ask my guests some bonus wrap-up questions.
Sure.
You've still got time.
Yep. I'm under a bright light. I have to be truthful.
Yeah, hand on the Bible. Number one, what is your number one guilty pleasure?
Well, it would have to be music. So
Thought you might say that.
Yeah, especially playing trumpet. Once you get to a certain level, you have to play every day, 7 days a week. Other instruments, you can take a few days off. Trumpet, just because it's involved with muscles and there's so much resistance and strength and all that. So I tell people, oh, when I've had a bad day, I pull out my trumpet. When I've had a good day, I pull out my horn. Because it's so connected. And that's what the gift from my mom was, that music isn't just notes. Right? You learn just to play notes initially. And I had a great trumpet coach. And he says, Bob, we're going to get to the point where you're going to play music. Now you're going to play those notes with feeling and emotion. And like a movie. Think about a movie. It'd be nothing without that beautiful music. And it guides us emotionally into what the scene is, whether it's they're being chased, right? Or they're falling in love. And it's all in the music.
Absolutely. We often forget the music, for sure. Number two, what is the book that changed your life? If there is one.
Yes. Well, it's funny because the first book that jumped off the shelf at me was on EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, using eye movement. And I actually got to study with the creator of it. And that opened my eye, because I did a Google search at one point, and EFT popped up. I go, I've never heard of this. MDR was like, that wasn't for me, right? Although it does good stuff. But then I studied the EFT, and what took 90 minutes with the EMDR took 15 minutes with tapping. Yeah, because it's a direct, yeah. Now, acupuncture, people, you get that, or acupressure points, right, when they tap, right? It's the same kind of concept, except it's passive. So if you're getting acupressure, and you're thinking about the trauma, your brain is like sending electrical signals, and you're going to focus it, but the tapping doesn't take needles.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And the greatest life lesson you've learned to date?
Wow. It's probably what my dad said as a kid that made me really mad. Because when something bad happened, he says, son, bad things happen in life. They'll either make you bitter or better, and the choice is yours.
Brilliant. Bitter or better. Very memorable.
And see how that's applying to this? Right? The brain tumor that could have made me bitter. I didn't deserve this. And it made me better because I decided to shift the focus. The suppression of my cancer breakthrough. For a long time, that made me bitter. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. That actually was something that made me recognized in the medical field, of natural medicine field, as an authority, because of something that was actually suppressed, because it was helping the body heal. So that was actually a gift.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's looking at the bright side, the positive side. How can you grow from it, rather than weight and self-pity? Yeah, love it. Yeah. And finally, where can our lovely listeners follow you on your journey and reach out to you?
Beautiful. So the website, thehiddensecrettohealing.com, there'll be a link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And there'll be a way to send an email. And the email is Bob at The Hidden Secret to Healing. Pretty straightforward, Bob. And then I also put up a site that's strictly on emotional healing. So it's The Hidden Secret to Emotional Healing. Just add the word emotional in there. And you'll see examples after example of folks that have been helped, which again encourages people that they can be helped. I mean, literally people that went for years with therapy and they said, well, we can't do anything more, suddenly got massive breakthroughs because we shifted to actually helping their body heal.
Incredible. Bob, thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
Those
welcome.
links will be in the show notes in the description. So everyone listening today, please have a look, reach out to Bob. And yeah, Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed our conversation. And
My pleasure.
Looking forward to following you on your journey. And if you haven't already, please rate the show, comment, let us know how you went with Bob's technique on falling asleep. We'd love to hear that. You'll see mine in there for sure.
Don't do it while you're driving.
Yeah, pick the time and the place, people. Time and place for everything.
Officer.
And yeah, hopefully you got some tips and guidance today on guiding you towards your wholesome way. And until next time, stay wholesome.
Beautiful.